Generative AI, right? It's
Yeah.
everywhere you turn these days. And it seems like everyone's suddenly an expert on what it's going to do for the bottom line, like how much ROI can we squeeze out of this thing. But, it makes you wonder, can we really put a price tag on something this new,
Yeah.
this early in the game?
Yeah.
I mean, is it even possible to say right now if generative AI is worth the investment?
Right.
Well, that's what we're digging into today, actually, with this really interesting piece by Willy Seyama. Now, he's the CEO, so he's coming at this from a practical standpoint,
Yeah.
not just theory. And he really digs into this whole ROI question in this LinkedIn article he wrote.
Okay.
It's a good one. He's looking specifically at this report that Google put out, all about, surprise, surprise, the ROI of generative AI. So, look, this isn't about picking on Google or anything, but it is about asking the tough questions. Can we really trust these early ROI reports?
Yeah.
Especially with something as potentially, game-changing as generative AI.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to be a little skeptical here. I'm just throwing that out there.
Right. Well, Seyama seems to think so. He's definitely urging some caution. He's really arguing that a lot of these ROI claims we're seeing, especially, let's be honest, from the companies who are, heavily invested in AI doing well, maybe we should take this with a grain of salt. Yeah, and it's interesting because, this goes beyond just AI, right? This is like a pattern. We see this with all sorts of emerging tech. Think about the dot-com boom, right? Everyone was promised the moon. The internet's going to make you rich. But the real measurable ROI, that took time. And I think we could be seeing something similar here. Generative AI, it could be revolutionary, but we're still so early. It's like the Wild West out there.
Oh, absolutely. And Seyama actually uses Microsoft Copilot as a perfect example.
Oh, okay.
Which, they're marketing it as this incredible productivity booster.
Yeah.
Especially for knowledge workers, right?
Okay.
The Seyama's point is, where's the proof? Where are the hard numbers?
Yeah, and how do you even measure that, right? I mean, how do you measure the ROI of creativity? Of strategic thinking? Those are not things you can easily quantify like units produced in a factory. It's a much fuzzier area.
Totally. It's not like you can just whip out a spreadsheet at your next performance review and be like, boom, see 20% more insights this quarter thanks to AI.
Exactly.
It just doesn't quite work that way.
And this is where I think it gets really relevant for everyone, even if you're not, coding AI yourself, because as this stuff becomes more and more a part of our work, our lives, whatever, we need to be really critical about the information that's coming at us, right?
Yeah.
How is success being measured? What are we even looking at? And what does it actually tell us about what AI is doing?
That's such a good point. And it's something that Seyama really gets at with his critique of this Google report, which, by the way, is literally called the ROI of GenAI.
Oh, wow.
Bold.
It is?
So, Seyama points out, right off the bat, Google's got a dog in this fight.
Of course, yeah.
They want to see AI succeed. They've poured a ton of money into it, right?
Right.
And with Alphabet's market cap, I mean, we're talking trillions here.
Huge.
There's pressure to show a return.
Absolutely. And that kind of pressure, whether we realize it or not, it influences things, how data gets presented, how it's interpreted, even with the best intention.
For sure. Okay, so problem number one, potential bias there.
Right.
But then Seyama jigs deeper, and he starts pointing out that the data itself in this report seems a little, off.
How so?
For starters, they're mostly looking at larger companies, the ones with, over 100 employees, pulling in at least 10 million in revenue. So already not exactly a random sample. These are companies that are probably more likely to already be using AI.
Right. You're kind of self-selecting at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, geographically, it's pretty limited.
Oh, really?
Mostly North America, a bit of Europe, but Africa, Russia, the Middle East, completely absent from the analysis, which,
It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. Yeah. How representative is this report, really?
Exactly. Of a global perspective. Not very maybe.
Okay.
So we've got potential bias in who's presenting the data. We've got potential limitations in the data itself. But Seyama, he doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
It keeps going. He also takes issue with how the data, even if it's perfect data, is presented in this report.
Okay, how so?
The language they use is very
Vague.
Vague, yes, and potentially very misleading.
Interesting. Can you give me an example?
Yeah, so they use phrases like estimate or report all the time, but they don't always clarify how they got those estimates or give you access to the raw data behind it.
Oh, wow. So it's like they're giving you the meal, but they won't tell you the recipe.
Yes. perfect analogy. Like, you can enjoy it, but you can't replicate it. You don't know what went into it.
You're just supposed to trust them.
Exactly. And it just makes you wonder, like, what aren't they showing and why? And Seyama gives us a great example. So there's this one line in the report, and I quote, 86% of organizations using GenAI in production and seeing revenue growth also estimate revenue growth of 6% or more.
Okay.
And he breaks that down.
Yeah.
Like, he dissects this sentence and just shows how many qualifiers, assumptions are baked into that statement.
It's like they're implying that the AI is directly responsible for that revenue growth.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's just correlation, right? Not causation.
Right. Just because these companies are using AI and seeing revenue growth doesn't mean the AI is what's causing the growth.
Right. They could be doing a million other things.
Exactly. A million other factors.
And without that raw data, you just don't know.
And that's why it's so important to be data literate, even if you're not a data scientist. It's about being able to look at this stuff critically, to ask the right questions, especially with something as, like, complex and fast-moving as AI.
It's like we have to become AI detectives or something.
A little bit, yeah.
I've got to look for clues, consider different sides, don't just jump to conclusions based on the first shiny object we see.
Exactly. And like a good detective, sometimes the most important clues are the things that are missing.
It's like they're saying, look at this shiny thing. Don't worry about what's behind the curtain.
Exactly. And that's how people get taken advantage of, especially, people who aren't knee-deep in data all day, every day.
Right. They see a headline, AI increased revenue by X%, and they think that's the whole story.
Exactly. They don't have the time to go digging for the raw data to see if it even backs up those claims.
So how do we, as, normal people, not data scientists, how do we even approach this stuff?
Well, I think a healthy dose of skepticism is a good starting point.
Okay.
Like, whenever you see a report, an article, whatever, making these big, bold claims about AI and ROI, the first thing you should be asking yourself is, who benefits from this?
Right.
Who's selling me something?
Like who?
Exactly. What's their incentive here? And then look at the data itself. If they even give it to you, is it actually representative? Like we were saying before, if it's just a bunch of big companies already predisposed to use AI, that doesn't tell you much, does it?
Right. It's like asking everyone at a Tesla dealership if they love electric cars.
Exactly. You're going to get a skewed perspective. And then pay attention to the language. They're using a lot of estimates, a lot of vague language.
Might, potentially.
Yeah. All those weasel words. The more of those you see, the warier I'd be.
It's almost like the more certain they sound, the less certain we should be.
It's counterintuitive, but yeah, kind of. Especially now, right? We're so early in this whole generative AI game.
Totally. Yeah. And to be fair to Seyama, he even says it's not that generative AI won't have a huge ROI someday. He's not saying it's all hype, no substance. He just thinks it's way too soon to tell.
Exactly. Like, we don't have enough data yet to make these grand pronouncements. He actually says, instead of calling their report the ROI of GenAI, Google should have gone with something more like early observations or something.
Indicators.
Yeah, indicators of potential ROI, something a little more grounded.
A little less salesy.
Exactly. Because it's more about acknowledging, hey, we're still figuring this out, which is fine. That's where we're at. It's a new frontier.
It's like those old maps, with the sea monsters and here be dragons.
Right. We're still exploring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about dismissing the potential. It's about being realistic.
Absolutely. And that means being informed, being critical, not just taking these reports at face value. Because there's a lot at stake here.
Totally. I mean, companies are making big decisions based on this stuff.
Exactly. And so are individuals. People are worried about their jobs, about the future. We need good information to make good decisions.
For sure. So how do we get to that good information? How do we cut through the noise? Especially if we're not, like, AI experts ourselves.
Well, that's what we're going to dive into right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
So it sounds like what you're saying is we all need to become more data literate.
In a way, yes. Or at least we need to be more aware of how data can be used and misused, especially when it comes to something as powerful as AI.
Right. Because if even the experts are still trying to figure this all out, what does that mean for the rest of us? The people who are just starting to hear about generative AI and wondering what it all means.
Well, for one, don't panic. I know it can seem overwhelming, but that's where curiosity comes in.
Okay, I like that.
Don't be afraid to dive in, read up on it, experiment with some of the free AI tools that are out there.
There are free ones. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah, tons. And a lot of them are surprisingly easy to use. You don't need to be a coder or anything.
See, I wouldn't even know where to start.
It's easier than you think. Just start playing around. You'd be amazed at what you can do with a few clicks. And that's how you learn, right? By doing.
True, true. It's like anything else, the more you use it, the more comfortable you become.
Exactly. And as you're experimenting, think about your own field, your own work. What are some of the pain points, the things that take up a lot of your time or energy? Could AI potentially help with that?
So it's about being proactive, looking for opportunities to use these tools to our advantage.
Exactly. It's not about replacing jobs. It's about augmenting what we can already do, making us more efficient, more creative.
Because ultimately, AI is a tool, right? It's only as good or bad as the humans using it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's all about how we choose to wield these new tools, the ethics behind it, the creativity. That's the human element that AI can't replicate.
Well, that's a hopeful thought to end on. This has been a fascinating deep dive, to say the least. Really makes you think twice about all those headlines, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It's a brave new world out there. But I think if we approach it with open minds and a healthy dose of skepticism, we can navigate it together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, thanks for coming along on this journey with us.
Okay.
And remember, the future of AI isn't something that's just happening to us. We're all a part of shaping it.
We are?
So stay curious, my friends. Stay
Yeah.
informed. And until next time, happy exploring.